some very big stars were afraid to go near this, but this man who was still afraid of it had the courage to go through it and did it.
I did it because I was so scared. When I was offered, I thought, this is just insane.
Right?
Oh, who would take this job? I could hear the knives sharpening in my head already, and I thought, oh, fuck it.
I am very excited to chat with you both for this show. It is such a moving, such an insightful piece into quite a legendary life. Dyan, I'd actually like to start with you first. I mean, you are very much at the heart of this story, as is Jennifer and Archie and Cary. What is it like for you working with Jennifer and Jeff to really bring this story to life through the show?
Jeff Pope came to me about 10 years ago. It's been that long. After he'd read my book, Dear Cary, said, let's make a movie. I said, okay, let's talk about it. We've been talking about it for 10 years. Finally, it's done. It evolved from a movie, an hour and a half, to 4 hours of being able to really get into who this man was. An hour and a half couldn't do it. So I'm so grateful that it's now a miniseries, a completed miniseries, with our Jason starring as Cary.
I couldn't agree more. When Jeff mentioned the movie, I was like, no, this needed to be a full thing. So I'm glad it was.
And, good for you.
And Jason, for you, I mean, what was it like for you, approaching this material and knowing that you would be stepping into the shoes of such an iconic figure?
Well, I mean, when I first heard that it was happening and I was offered the job, I thought, what kind of lunatic would take this on board? But then I read the scripts and I realized I wasn't playing Cary Grant, because he was playing Cary Grant, and that this is a story about who this globally adored, beloved man was when he shut the front door and took that mask off, and how really, truly damaged and damaging he was as an individual, and how the scars of his childhood, those wounds, not only were still open, but in seeking the love of the entire world and getting it, had just made them more and more open. The gap between who he was and who he projected was couldn't have been wider. And that felt like something that I could not only play, but I could shed all the terror of the world's expectations.
I love that you captured both of those layers so well throughout the show. Was there any particular detail about Cary that you either worked with Dyan and Jennifer for, or went through research and prior interviews with him to really ensure you nailed just right?
Well, so many. I mean, there's all the outward stuff, which the makeup and hair did brilliantly, the costume did brilliantly, and then the nailing the voice, which was a whole journey by itself. But not nailing the voice, attempting the voice. But really the most important thing was to try and make him true, emotionally true and real. And although Jennifer was incredibly brave and open and vulnerable by talking to me a lot, she had a very narrow picture of this wonderfully adoring dad. Dyan met a very different person and was married to a very complicated and extremely angry man, or a man who wrestled, angry at himself too, and angry at the world, and she had a terrible experience. But when the marriage turned wrong, and Dyan was extraordinarily brave and honest and unguarded in telling me anything I wanted to know, and that really was the key ingredient to what you end up seeing on screen, because her book is amazing, but also your perception after this many years and all the work you've done in healing, you're able to be both objective about it and paint such a vivid picture. And that was what I brought to the screen.
Well, you see, the thing is, Jason, I've worked with so many actors in my lifetime. I've never worked with anyone like Jason. I know actors prepare and they go into but he really investigated Cary. But more than delving into who he was, how he was, when he was, where he was, he nailed his being. He got the heart of Cary, the soul of Cary, the torment of Cary, the angst of Cary. He really got him and did it. There were some scenes that I watched that made me very uncomfortable because he got right down to the nitty-gritty. So,
well, thanks. I mean,
bravo.
He was very complex, as we all are. I mean, very few people go into the acting business if they had a healthy childhood.
Right. That's right.
Something's got to be cracked for you to be exploring the human condition and to seek validation that way. And he was cracked bigger than most people, I think.
With all of that said, then, Dyan, I'll turn back to you. What did you feel were some of the keys in working with Jeff, looking into your book and your own past life to that you felt were needed in exploring Cary's story and your own story through this show?
Well, especially instead of just coloring him white, you know. As Jason said, everybody who goes into our business is cracked. How big is the crack, you know, and can that great
Where did it
divide
start?
come together? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, look, it was frustrating at times. It was very painful at times. It was revelatory for me. Even last night at the screening, I had some revelations that I hadn't thought about before. So it's been a full-bodied experience, I might tell you. But I think that the reason it's going to appeal to people is that it's bigger than Cary. It's a universal story about how we heal ourselves, how we try to heal ourselves, how we act out damaged goods. It's about all of us, really. To some point, wouldn't you say?
Sure, I do. But also, what you have in your book, the story you want to tell through Jeff, starts early. You understood from being with the 61-year-old man that the key to understanding what was going wrong with him happened when he was 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 10, and that stuff's in your book in ways that most people wouldn't write in an autobiography. You saw the fault lines stretching all the way back to the turn of the century.
You know, it took me 15, 16 years to write that book. Swifty Lazar, who was the biggest agent in town, came to me, who was one of Cary's good friends, came to me a week after Cary passed and said, time to write the book. A week after. I said, no. He said, I can get you millions. He said, well, but we want all the dirt. Mm-hmm. Jackie Onassis came to me 15 years later and said, I want to edit your book. I said, no, I can't do it. Why? I said, I'm not healed yet. She said, you don't even have to mention him. I said, yeah, I do. It was a big, huge part of my life. So that was part of the healing process. And this man was brave enough, and I say brave enough, because some very big stars were afraid to go near this. But this man, who was still afraid of it, had the courage to go through it and did it.
I did it because I was so scared. When I was offered, I thought, this is just
that
insane.
right?
Oh, who
Really?
would take this job? I could hear the knives sharpening in my head already, and I thought, oh, fuck it. You know, but if you don't jump in when you're scared, what's the point of doing it?
See, but that's courageous. No. That's courage. That's boldness. That's all of it.
Well, you've both shown a lot of courage, Jason, by taking this on, and Dyan, by allowing us to learn more about your story through your book and through this show. And I think you've done a phenomenal job. I see I'm out of time, so I will let you go. But thank you both so much for taking the time to chat. I can't wait to spread the word about this show.
Thanks very much.